Narset, Xavix, when you return to the casino, there is a small six-legged walker standing in the middle of the courtyard at the base of the steps. It's like a 2/3 size ATTE from the Clone Wars. Pretty much exactly, actually. It's got room for 8 people. It's got a couple of cabins inside and a workspace and a piloting compartment up front and all the things that your modern explorer on the go might want to take as like their piloting ground party vehicle at the start of a campaign instead of a starship kind of thing.
Right.
And that's what she's got as her vehicle. Next to it are the 2 Xavix from the day before. One of the Sherpa is dressed in the traditional ravneck hide cloak with a bundle of primitive spears on his back, a cord belt hung with bolas and nets strung across his chest. The other Xavix is dressed in a modern high-tech poncho and web belt with pouches, has a high-tech spear blaster, and his belt is hung with a number of technological gadgets. Kintera is standing on the sloped front plating of the forward compartment, leaning against the glass of the piloting compartment, looking down at the 2 of you as you approach, and grinning.
Are you both ready?
Good to see you again, Kintera. Unfortunately, I won't be able to join you this expedition, as I have other matters that I need to attend to. On the good side, though, Narset here will be joining you for your entire expedition.
Lando will have to forgive me to what I'm about to do with this jacket.
What are you doing to your jacket?
Well, I mean, the idea that I'm taking this on an expedition to a frozen volcano. I hope it doesn't get destroyed.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do just fine.
Kintera listens to this back and forth and chuckles. She says,
You always have the option of staying inside the walker with me if you'd like.
and then jumps down from the top of it and walks around towards the back. She says,
The hatch is back here. I'm so sorry you can't join us, Master Silverstar, but I understand that you have taken on responsibility towards the club, and thank you for that. It'll be good to get things back in order after this recent upset.
She looks at Narset and lowers her gaze, gives you a little Kubrick stare, and taps her fingertips together. She goes,
Excellent. I'll be able to study Miss Jinn privately. Hopefully I can get you out later, Master Silverstar, and double my research.
She laughs.
Kintera is thirsty.
She's thirsty for knowledge, bro.
She wants that extracurricular activity, man.
Gonna write some papers.
She's gonna write a book about us. We could
Yeah,
seriously
this is the fucking find of a life.
galaxy's view of Jedi by our interactions with her.
Mm-hmm. Right now, all they have to go on is Afra's lies. So, Xavix, you're able to head inside. Kintera waits for you to join her at the rear of the walker, Narset, before hopping up the ladder inside.
Let's go.
The rear compartment of the walker is set up with a work area and 2 small cabins with a pair of bunks in each. Through the flexible umbilical to the front, you see another 2 small cabins with a pair of bunks, and then a large crew area with space for 6. And then in the front, you see the small windowed compartment where the pilot stands and drives from the very front of the walker. The ceiling is low enough to only be a handspan above your own head. You don't know how the Xavix are going to fit in here, and then you hear them clambering up the outside of the walker and taking up perches on the top. Kintera gestures around, tells you to make yourself comfortable. She says,
We're going to be going uphill for a few hours to start with, but then once we reach the peak, we'll be able to explore the top of the volcano. Then we'll head down the ice flows to the east that lead towards the native village. I've never made it that far, and we'll head back either tomorrow or the day after. Depends on whether Master Silverstar's needs require you, or are you all mine?
she asks.
You said you haven't gone that far before. I'm sure our radio communications at some point, if it does become an issue, the Force will protect us. With Master Silverstar, I can't imagine him getting into too much physical trouble. I think he'll be alright. But worst case scenario, that's what our radio communications are for.
She says,
I just mean that the race is very important to the club. He's not going to need your help with organizing it, is he?
That's not my specialties.
Well, I guess we each help in whichever way we can best.
after you find a spot in the forward cabin, she moves into the pilot compartment. The vehicle lurches with each step, but makes its way quite grandly down the main street of Fishtown, drawing eyes from all sorts of out-of-work fishermen and dock workers as it does. There's a procession of onlookers. By the time it heads out onto the main road, and she goes,
We're actually going to be on road until we get to the gasworks. Then we'll follow the ducts up to the mountaintop. It's the most traversable route to get up there.
I'm curious to see how the environment balances itself out between fire and ice. But I'm also curious to see what the cultural influences we find out in the ice. I'm curious to see what shows itself.
as you make the trip, she goes,
I've been up this way enough. There isn't a lot of life here, but what there was has adjusted well enough. You'll see. It certainly made things hard enough for me on my other expeditions.
with that, she turns back to driving, and once out of Fishtown proper, the vehicle reaches a steady walk and begins making a brisk pace down the highway towards the gasworks. Master Silverstar, we rejoin you outside the casino as you watch the walker with its two Xavix Sherpas clinging agilely to the back clumps its way out of the wall and down into town.
I'm sure they'll be okay. I think I'll make my way into the casino, or the expat club now.
All right, excellent. In through the doors and up the turbo lift, you find their offices on the same floor as...
Wait, before I get up to the turbo lift, I walk in. Is Halloran there, the pilot?
You see that he is not.
Then I'm gonna make my way upstairs.
Some of the expats are hanging out in the casino. You see that Hixelplix, Rathamith are here. Kolvar's just down around at his office, down the corridor. Rathamith, as you come in, he nods to you, says, "Thank you for the soiree last night, Mr. Silverstar. I think Kolvar's waiting to speak to you in your own good time, sir."
Well, I'm glad you had a pleasant experience, and I'm glad to be a host. Yes, I'm definitely going to make my way over to Kolvar's office, knock on the door. Maybe he sees me as I approach.
It's open, and he signals for you to come in. When he finishes up the work at his terminal, he slides the screen shut and then looks across the table at you. Says, "I guess this means you didn't join Miss Quintera on her expedition then.
No,
I guess you're getting right to work."
Yes, I felt I needed to take care of this and get it situated before I run off and do my own things. But I need to know, would you know where to find some of these things I'm looking for, like the rings?
He says, "I believe that our good friend Rathamith did lay in some of the material components that he needed for the race before he lost his gumption and discontinued operations. As soon as the Imperials showed up, he lost all spine for things. Frankly, I think we could have held the damn race and had them out of here weeks ago if he'd merely gone forward with things. The rings are down in our hangar, sir, where the racer Halloran also has his ship. Anyone else that you find to pilot, like your friend from last night, can also keep their vessel there until the race. I don't think it's well situated as a starting line, but we have hangar facilities suitable. It's part of why we were going to organize this event to begin with. The rings are stored there. I don't know if they are in fully working condition, and I don't know if Mr. Rathamith had a route planned or not. Another one of our members used to be a pilot of some renown, and you might want to get your head together with him if your friend is not available."
Well, that sounds very good, and I appreciate the advice towards it. I think I'll go speak with Rathamith and figure out a little bit more.
When you make your way back out to the casino floor, Rathmith welcomes you over to the table. He introduces you to Captain Thude, formerly of the Antares sector, part of their Starfighter Corps. The gentleman nods to you and says, "Fancy work with the tables yesterday," and wraps his knuckles on the surface of the table that he's standing at, which has been restored to its place after you had it whirling through the air.
I'm sorry to have such a flamboyant display, but I needed to get my point across pretty quickly. By chance, you wouldn't happen to want to fly in this race, would you?
He shakes his head sadly and goes, "I would love to, sir. However, I took some damage in a battle, and I never got the nerves in my right arm fully repaired. I'm just not as good behind the stick as I used to be, and frankly, I'm not trying to run in a race that I can't win."
Well, I can understand that. And I wouldn't want to ask you to push yourself beyond your limits. But you would seem to be very knowledgeable in actually this sport. Maybe I can get your assistance in other ways.
Of course, sir. The club is running the race. I'm a member of the club. How can I be of assistance?
Well, it seems that I've got a hangar, and I've got a few racers in mind. Right now, what's on my mind is getting a course marker and rings. You wouldn't know happen where I can procure some of those, would you?
Says, "Rath, didn't you already get them?" And Rathmith, who's been looking back and forth between the two of you, nods. He goes, "They should be down in the hangar."
Fantastic. Well, that's one more thing that we have down. Now, Rathmith, you being the financier of this, or the financier of this establishment, would you be interested in talking about how we're going to have an audience and how we can monetize this event?
He says, "Well, we were going to obviously encourage the guests at the casino to bet on the event, and Iceball itself provides a sizable market. Many of them will come to Fishtown when they know we're holding such an event. However, with the arrival of the Remnant, I'm not sure about any of that anymore. I wasn't expecting these complications. Frankly, we have the built-in audience. This was merely another enticement for them. We can still reach out to some of them, but I'm unsure as to whether they'll come back with things in the current state. Of course, that's the root of the whole problem." He says, "Other than that, we could talk to the Hutts, of course. They control the city. They have 20,000 workers living there."
I think I have an idea of something that might work. I'm sure I'll have to run this by Kolvars before it goes through, but maybe we can offer somebody a better seat in the race and get the Hutts involved and ask. We've got to talk to them anyway, and I might have a contact for that, but maybe we could offer them another place for us to host the race. Maybe the best part of the race goes through that, and we can bring in more people outside of the Imperials that are here now.
Captain Thude nods. He goes, "Course planning is very important. We've got wonderful natural terrain here for a low altitude race, but a lot of that terrain is quite distant from both the casino and the city. But you can always have part of the course cut along the beach."
I think that'd be a fantastic idea.
Says, "Then you'll definitely need to talk to the Hutts. They consider all of the airspace on the planet there."
Well, if we can figure out a way to get the Hutts on board, maybe they can also market it out, and we'll get a higher pot in the or a higher prize pool with people placing bets. Are the bets open now?
Says, "Not until we have racers."
I'll go find another pilot then and speak to the Hutts, and we'll move on from there.
The captain nods. He goes, "I'm glad to see the operation is in your hands. No offense, Wrath, but I think you got cold feet. Go ahead with this, lad. I think it's going to make money, or I wouldn't have voted for it, Wrath. You had a good idea here." With that, the captain and Rathmith give you leave to head out and check into other pilots, maybe investigate the rings down below. And we'll have time to do that before we see what Worm's success has been on his mechanics check to work on the engine out there. You leave the casino floor and head down out of the building, out into the courtyard. On the landing field outside of the hangar structure are two Imperial troop transports. You see that an armored stormtrooper with a shoulder pauldron is directing some stormtroopers in sweeping the snow off of the shuttles and away from the landing platform around them. There is a huge main door that leads into the center of the hangar with a smaller door next to it, more man-sized aperture. The massive main hangar door is only partially open with a wide enough space to drive a speeder truck through, but the door itself can open wide enough for a Silhouette 4 vehicle to fit through. And as you enter into the cavernous center of the hangar, you see that this wide main chamber heads back, and there are 4 bays, 2 on each side off of the center of the hangar. And in the first one on the right, you see a fighter craft, and on the first on the left, you see a stack of 4 massive metal rings large enough to fly a shuttle through the center of, with 4 more of them leaning against each other at an angle against one wall. The 2 back bays, one on either side, are currently unoccupied. As you enter, you see Halloran, who is absent from the bar inside, look up out of one of the engine compartments of his ship at you. He grunts and then sticks his head back under the manifold to continue working on his engine.
I'm gonna move past and not fully engage him just yet, but move and check on the rings real quick, their condition, and see what they're like.
You're gonna have to do a mechanics check to fully investigate them. Just at a look, they seem to be structurally intact, but none of them are currently active or repulsing.
Any damage on the outside?
Go ahead and give me a hard perception check, because these are massive rings and they're lying on each other, so you can't see all of them, and you have to maneuver around them in this bay. Each one is like big enough to drive a semi-truck through the middle of, you know?
Oh, okay.
You don't have a ladder to climb up on top of them, and they're stacked 4 high, so they're like... And you strain yourself for 4 strain from those threat in all of your climbing around and thoroughly investigating these rings. But successfully, you do climb around and investigate these rings. You find that they are structurally intact, and as you fiddle with the control panels on them, without activating the repulsor lifts and causing them all to go flying around the room, causing a massive disaster in this enclosed space, because they're going to have to be dragged out and positioned and activated one at a time. You do find that at least of the 8 of them, 6 of them come online, and the control panels indicate that they are in working order. Of the other 2, one of them comes online and indicates that the repulsor coils need repair, and the last of them will not activate at all. I'm going to keep those other 2 threat in my pocket to throw a setback die on a check that someone else is going to make later in the session, because I can do that. And when you're done climbing around, you find that there is a Rhodian wearing an Imperial technician's jumpsuit standing at the mouth of the opposite bay, staring at you. But when he notices that you're done with your work, he hustles around the fighter to the back of that hangar and begins working on the far side of the craft.
I'm going to make my way over to the Rhodian.
Halloran pops up out of his engine as he hears you approaching and jumps down. He comes over with greasy hands and a rag on his belt and offers a hand to you to shake without making any attempt to clean them.
I go right in for the handshake,
Says,
not even worried about the dirt.
Griff Halloran, pilot. You are?
Xavix Silverstar. I'll be in charge of this race from now on. That I heard that you were interested in joining, or that you're already joining us for.
He says that's what they brought me here for. So they are having a race after all, and this isn't just a new watering hole.
I intend to make it so.
I was about to start looking for other offers.
Well, it looks like I've got my work cut out for me. I've got a little bit of issue with the race course and a few of the rings, but I don't think it's going to be anything I can't handle. But it looks like we may have found another racer for you to race against.
Says, good. The bays look a little empty.
We'll be working on that as well. You should start seeing some new changes in the next few days. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to come to me.
He nods and says, excellent. Let me know when the course is set up so that I can take some practice.
I will do. Thank you.
Halloran gives you a nod as you head back out. Xavix, and you know that you've got to get some of these rings worked on and then deployed once you've got a route planned. But you know a few people who might be able to help with that.
I do. I already have that in mind. Well, I'll go ahead and try to hit up Zeef and Worram on the communicator.
Excellent. You comlink then, and we cut to Zeef, your communicator ringing on the skiff.
Always.
And you're going to talk to Xavix while Worram, go ahead and give me a roll in the background of a hard mechanics check.
And Zeef, always a professional. Kind of like straightens himself out, so he's still steadying himself on this rocking boat with one hand, and he's kind of, hello, sir, Zeef's Detective Agency. What can we do for you?
Well, what a wonderful morning to you, Zeef.
How are things going on your end? We're kind of in the middle of, just our errands, I suppose. He kind of looks over incredulously at Worram, struggling to get it working again. Like there's sparks and stuff. I just kind of internalize all that and turn back to the comm and don't really. It's like, yeah, we're, pretty much business as usual. How are things going for you?
Things are going smoothly. Things are starting to turn and becoming more clear what's needed to do. Would you guys mind stopping by the casino? I have one more request of you guys for today.
Yeah, we'll be there as soon as possible. We're kind of ironing out a bit of a mechanical error right now, so it might be a little
Worram,
longer.
give me that roll right now.
6 successes.
As you say, you've got a mechanical issue you're working on. The repulsor coils thrum back to life, and the skiff lurches 4 feet vertically.
Yes.
And then stabilizes above the water.
Zeef corrects himself and says, scratch that. We shall be seeing you soon. Disregard.
Alright. Well, I'll see you. I'll expect you here shortly. And then I'll tell you about what we need to do.
Copy that. Okie day.
Can I make my way up to the suite now?
Yes, absolutely. Worram, I need you to reverse the piloting and survival checks on your way out here, but it's going to be 1 die less difficult than it was on the way in. To see if you guys get back, and while they're making their way back, Xavix, you head back up to your suite to make whatever preparations you need for that. You succeed with the piloting. The repulsor takes a strain, and you yourself do as well, Worram, because it's just another day full of goddamn things during the piloting. And go ahead and make that survival check. All right. Well, you guys make it back to the dock. Xavix, what are you up to in your suite as Worram and Zeef arrive maybe 40 minutes later?
Yeah, I'm just gonna prepare, use a refresher, kind of reduce some strain if I can, and or if I have any, I'm not sure. And then also see if I can.
You took 4 strain when you were climbing around in the rings. Right. So go ahead and make a discipline or cool check against nothing, and recover strain equal to your successes. Narset, you haven't taken strain because you've been riding in pampered comfort at like a 30-degree incline on a winding path up this mountain for the last several hours.
Is it pretty lush inside
generally,
Kintera's walker?
Yes, exactly. Okay. Generally following the pylons of the massive pipes that carry gas down from the factory to the gasworks. On the way up, you haven't seen any sort of wildlife or fauna or flora of any kind. And Kintera comments offhand that before the factory came, geological records indicate that the volcano went off regularly. So the lack of indigenous species is probably
due to the fact
a result of that and not industrialization of the area.
There wasn't anything here before they came, at least as far as I know.
She says,
I didn't have a lot of access, but there are mining guild records from when they put this operation into place. That was about 250 years ago.
You said repeatedly that we needed protection or things, or that there were moments where you would get chased out of your previous adventures. Like, what is it that you had to look out for? Was there bandits out here in like this burning frozen tundra, or were there other carnivorous creatures that just were natural dangers, or was it all environmental issues that kept you away?
She says,
up on the ice floe, where the slope is less steep, and the glacial activity moved through, there is native life.
It's up on the top and the windward side of the island. The volcano rim has all been built over by the factory. And here on the leeward side, where the bay is, people live. But on the windward side and on the ice floe, at the top of the mountain, no one has been. And because of the shape of the terrain, this is generally, she can say,
you can see by how the land sloped. When the volcano would erupt, this is naturally the direction of quickest travel for anything from there. So the other side of the island does have life. And some of it is quite fearsome. So even in a walker like this,
she wraps the side of the hull.
I don't want to overstay my welcome. Also, I don't want to disturb them overmuch.
Makes sense.
She says,
but I figured if I've got...
She turns around and the walker stops so that she can look at you and waggle her fingers.
If I've got someone with mystical abilities along with me, maybe you can soothe these beasts, or, I don't know, we can avoid them?
She shrugs and says,
I don't know. You two are the first Jedi I've ever met. You tell me what you can do.
No, when it comes to creatures and animals, best not to get too hasty or automatically come in with the idea of being offensive to, environmental creatures.
Yep.
If we can do avoidance, we should be avoidant.
She says,
that is the plan.
But if it's a bandit, we'll fuck him up.
She nods somberly and goes,
I defer to your deeper wisdom, Master Jedi.
And then turns and the walker begins its climb. As the slope gets even steeper, the feet of the exploration, survey, transport begin to lock into the ground, and you find yourself pushed back into the sea. You hear scrabbling on the outer hull, and then you can see a shadow fall across the windows of the driving compartment, and you realize that the Xavix are now standing on the front of the walker as it climbs up a 70-degree slope, approaching the steepest point of the volcanic rim towards the caldera itself.
Are they fucking pull it? Are they dragging?
They're just like Anakin and Ahsoka in the Clone Wars
on
movie.
The front of it, yeah.
Yeah.
They're just standing on the face of an ATTE that's climbing up a wall. Yeah.
Not like they're climbing up and dragging us.
No, they're just standing on it.
They're standing on this, and it's going this way.
Yeah.
But an ATTE, not this.
Yeah, exactly. She says,
we're nearly there.
And goes back to her driving. You've been in this walker now for a couple of hours, Narset. So whatever kind of conversation you want to have had has gone on in the ensuing time. She doesn't have anything else to do other than drive the walker up to the rim of the volcano.
I'll do a quick lore check on the visions.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. Go ahead and give me a hard lore check. Narset, you get 2 strain because you didn't stretch before you went into fucking lotus position to meditate for all this time, and your joints are stiff.
That's real
at the other side of it. But you got 4 successes. So as you think back to the reoccurring images you had over and over of this island, you definitely envisioned the workers traveling up from the city along this gondola route that you were following along these massive gas pipes.
Like the regular aliens, not the crabs.
Right, exactly. The workers from the Xavix do not work up at the factory. They don't have the technological aptitude, and the Hutts brought in their own workers from off-world that, are their vassals, and who are owned by them and, work, they're free workers of the Hutts, but they're not free people of this planet or whatever that aren't even considered, in the census as far as the Hutts are concerned.
They're by no means independent. They're fully Hutt subjects.
Yeah, exactly. And these Xavix are, just, they barely consider them to be a sentient, equivalent species. Except they do because they live in Fishtown. But the natives don't even count. It's like the Tals.
Second class
on the moon of
citizens.
Pantora. You know, like they don't have spaceships. They don't fucking count. You know, Prime Directive. If Prime Directive works the other way, if you're not space worthy, F you. We're gonna exploit you. We're not gonna protect you.
Right.
You know, kind of thing. Absolutely. So
It's free real estate.
it's very
Is
realistic.
Ariana space worthy?
No, but they were also underwater, and that's why the Naboo were considered like the species to deal with.
Yeah, there was
on
a lot
Naboo,
of-
and the Gungans weren't considered like even the species of the planet, even though they were the natives, and the Naboo were all
Because
colonists
they
who
think
had
they
come from
so
off-world.
smart.
Every Naboo human on the planet was a descendant of a colonist.
Mhm.
You know, but they were considered the like local, not the Gungans by
Mhm.
every other species in the galaxy until Jar Jar Binks became a representative in the galactic.
Colonialism, man.
And we know how that went.
Those humans.
Went down like a lead balloon. Yeah, man.
Hey, he made some big
so-
waves in the Senate. That Jar
I
Jar
know,
did.
right? Everything he did turned out just gangbusters for the galaxy, man.
Well,
You know,
it
nothing
turned
bad
out.
came from any of it. All right. So 4 successes. You've envisioned the workers traveling up and down along these same gondola tracks. In your mind, you're back in your vision. You see the workers. I mean, just so that we can develop it more, you know what I mean? You've gotten flashes, but now you're like remembering a whole sequence of like part of it instead of just the one image, you know? You see the workers streaming up out of the city in their endless tide up into the factory. You see them split off to work massive processors that are separating the gases coming out of the volcano. You see them heading down into the bowels of the factory, performing maintenance on the machines themselves, and you see them continuing deeper into the rocky tunnels of the mountain itself. And you see these workers in the tunnels of the mountain itself working on removing from the tunnel chunks of ore and gems and crystal that are the substances that the heat of the mountain is, through natural processes, turning into this Clauson gas that is getting processed into starship fuel. And you see, like a horde of thousands of insects, these workers spreading out from the volcano through these tunnels underneath the skin of the volcano and stripping from these tunnels these ores and these precious gems that are the source of the gas that the factory processes as a more pure way of accessing this material than waiting and sifting it from the volcanic gases themselves after the volcano does its natural processes. And that is what you see in this deeper vision. So 250 years ago, the Mining Guild built a factory to trap gases and process those gases into starship fuel. Now, 250 years later, the Hutt workers are going straight into like the lava tunnels of the volcano itself to strip out parts of the geology that the volcano would be turning into starship fuel for their factory to capture, instead of just filtering the gases. I know it doesn't give you any answers, does it? It's just more information to add to the picture you're putting together.
Yeah.
So I
And it's
understand
it's
that you're
not-
like, well, let me chew
it's
on
not
that for
like,
a while.
It's not like it's gonna be something as super stupid simple as like starship fuel crystals. Like, yeah, we're gonna use starship fuel crystals to use on the Vaughn. I feel like grand scheme story wise, like that's not the crystals and ores we're gonna be looking for. But it's definitely like, okay, we just need to emphasize. Let's just emphasize the location. Let's not worry so much about who the people are. Because I was like, are the people doing drugs? Are the Shark brothers there? Like, does the Vision have to deal with Zeef and Worram at all? But like, None of that. It's none of that. You're just
No.
magnifying. You're just hella magnifying, glassing the location. So.
Mm-hmm. And also, you wanted to know if anything of the journey you were making right now resonated with the vision. So you got a piece of the Force is giving you the answer to maybe not the question you wanted to ask, but it is the question you asked, which is there something about where I'm traveling through right now that resonates with this vision? And that is the answer that the Force
Like, I
is
definitely
giving you.
don't think that it's a great idea that they're, thinning out and self-corroding the protective layer that the volcano has. Like, I think they're just, making...
accelerating some sort of ecological disaster on the
Mhm.
planet, perhaps, that might or might not happen.
It sounds
And
like
that you
they're
might or
making
might
their
not be able
protective
to...
shield of the TNT stick thinner. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
The next
I don't know.
step.
We'll find out in future episodes of Star Wars Showdown on Iceball Station.